Now, Brexit has affected us all, without a doubt, and it has put some slight delays on parts coming through, but generally speaking, what we've done is we've employed good clearinghouse.
Planning, preparation, production, monitoring and service, and under these sort of 5 pillars are our digital offering in terms of programming.
Welcome to the MTD podcast. I'm Giovanni Albanese, hosting today's show, a passionate engineer and a very proud member of the MTD team. I'm at the headquarters of DMG MORI UK, a £1 billion global organisation and world-leading supplier of machine tools, automation and technology. Together we have embarked on a podcast journey through 2021, looking at all aspects of this UK engineering business, from spares, logistics, service, applications, life cycle projects, installations, finance and special projects. And today we conclude this educational journey with an end of year wrap up. I've personally learnt so much over the months, and we hope that our listeners have too. I'm joined today by 4 guests. Firstly, Steve Finn, an ambassador for everything engineering, an industry leader and managing director of DMG MORI UK. Steve, as always, thanks for having us back today, and a massive thank you for opening your doors to the MTD team.
Really welcome, Gio. Looking forward to this one to talk to the customers about everything we do.
And it's been great that we've learned, all of us, so much. John Henderson has also rejoined us on the podcast. You must be enjoying these podcasts, John, to come back for your second appearance.
Yeah, always, Gio, to enjoy these sorts of things. So look forward to this one.
Sales Director at DMG MORI UK. Now, we've got a special guest today, and our third guest is Charlie. Charlie Lucas has joined us today, marketing executive at DMG MORI UK. You've been following us on this podcast journey, and you're going to be driving the show today. It's going to have a little bit of a twist, and you're going to be kind of putting us to the test as to what we've learned during the months that we've been doing these podcasts.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, hopefully I'll put the directors next to me through their paces today slightly.
Good.
We'll see.
Brilliant, and welcome to the MTD podcast. And finally, Mark Dedman, Director, MTDCNC. Welcome to the podcast again, Mark, my friend.
Well, it's good to be here, my friend, but I think Charlie's going to put us all on our blocks, I think. So, one thing I will say, Steve, and all your team, is that these podcasts this year, I've learned a lot more than what I thought I knew about DMG MORI and the personnel that you have here. It's a fantastic team, fantastic portfolio of products that you have, and I'm looking forward to this as well.
Thank you, Mark. Steve,
can you start by telling our listeners why you wanted to embark on this podcast journey with such openness and transparency to all of our listeners?
Yeah, we've been looking at we're doing quite a bit of work with MTD in general, doing videos of various products, showing super machines running around doing their bit. And this is great if you've got the portfolio, but you've got to have the infrastructure within the organisation to actually manage that and actually support that with a customer. And it's something that many people don't talk about. They don't talk about, how do you run your operations? What do you do in your service department? How do spares arrive? And sometimes some customers will quiz us at the front end, or some sales guys will talk about it. But I wanted to open our doors because I'm extremely proud of the 100-odd people that work here at DMG MORI UK, how they support the customer, each in their own way, and then collectively as a unit. And that's really what I want to explain to the market.
That's exactly, Steve's exactly right. That's what we wanted to do with these podcasts. And of course, with working at DMG MORI UK, I'm looking to have the inside knowledge. But Steve, let's go back to the first podcast with Teresa and spare parts. You explained how we have a large central store system in Germany, Japan and the US of parts. Can you tell us how has that been affected by Brexit?
Yeah, Charlie, that's first question's the tough one, isn't it? Eh? But you're right. We go back to March with the first podcast we did with Teresa, and we focused on spares, a very important area that people want delivery of components. Now, we have a general we have a large store in Germany, in Geretsried, which is fairly near Munich Airport. We've also got one in Japan and one in the US, and we can actually call on the one in the US. Now, Brexit has affected us all, without a doubt, and it has put some slight delays on parts coming through. But generally speaking, what we've done is we've employed a good clearinghouse, particularly with the machines as well. You know, that's really important to get the documentation right. Things like spindles, which are high value. We had one competitor who a customer was telling me had a spindle sitting in customs for over 10 weeks. Crazy. We don't experience those problems. We've got some good administrators both here and back in Germany where the spares are coming from. And generally speaking, we can get parts within the 24 hours. It's becoming more difficult because of supply of parts are on a shortage now. So there's shortage of raw materials, there's shortage of electrical components everyone knows about. But actually, Charlie, the Brexit thing has not been affected us quite as badly as some other people that we're aware of. So I'm quite pleased on how our company's managed it.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Now, John, we all know how important customer experience is within any company, but especially ours. How do our service team manage that?
Well, the service team is crucial to our customer experience, and we have quite a large service team, primarily because of just the vast range of technical products that we have, from 5-axis to multi-axis to simple 2- and 3-axis milling machines. So there will be different levels of expertise within the service department, and they can also have mechanical and electrical bias, as well as some of the software issues that may arise. So there's a very wide skill set within our service department, and it's important that we're able to cover all of those bases to make sure that our customers are up and running and utilise the machine as much as possible.
Yeah, and actually the way that we monitor this is very important because, you know, there's a lot of KPIs that we lay down, but some of the things like fix first time, response time on a telephone, response time on what's now My DMG MORI, all of these items are monitored every single month. The results are sent to myself, and I look at them and we understand how we're feeding that market. They're also gone to group, so if I put in some bad figures, then I've got some answers to do. But the reality is the customer is the acid test. So we monitor a lot of stuff that we do and actually record that every single month and make sure that we're doing it right.
Steve, I have to take my hat off to you because, you know, going back a long, long time ago, I'm talking 10 years ago, I wouldn't say service wasn't as well delivered here as it is now. You've really sort of picked this up with your team. And one thing that really shone out from the service podcast that we done a number of months ago was very much that, you know, one of your technical guys is helping out 3 companies, and it would have taken him 3 or 4 days to actually get to. And it was like 1,500 miles apart.
Yeah, I'm actually, Mark, just going back to your first remark, I'm really pleased on how we've moved our service along in the last 10 years. We've got a much more proactive service now. We're not perfect, but we're actually doing a pretty good job across the board. And the majority of our customers are pretty more than satisfied. But the new system which we're using, which is Net Service, so we've got a very capable guy. They're all capable, but sitting there on a laptop servicing a guy in, if I remember correctly, it was like Devon, York and Aberdeen or something of that nature. Chelmsford, Aberdeen and Devon. And he fixed the 3 machines in the same day. Now, there is no charge to that, but actually it goes back to what John's saying about this is the customer experience. And the customer experience is good, we will get repeat business. It's not rocket science. But yeah, we've come a long way and we've got a great service department today.
So Steve, as you just mentioned with, we're talking about the service team, why do we have such a big service team, as John said?
Well, we've got over 5,000 machines in the field that we physically touch at some time or another throughout a period. And that's a lot of machines to have to make sure that we keep up and running. And somebody may ring you on a Monday morning because something's gone wrong at the weekend and you may not have spoken to them for several years. We've got to be able to respond. And our first line of defence gives us the net service, which we use in the office with our service experts. But the second line of defence is to get the service team out in the field. So sometimes if one of these guys is doing a big installation, he may be on site for a month to one customer. That takes him out. We've got to put another one in to make sure that the guy next door who's having a hiccup, maybe a simple battery failure or he needs a maintenance something, then we've got to be able to respond. So yeah, 35 service guys and growing.
Yeah,
so
always.
if anybody's listening to this, actually, I am actively employing service people, actively recruiting. So if you want to give our service manager, Andy White, a note, I'll be very happy to hear from you.
This is not a recruitment podcast, Steve.
Yeah, I know, but I thought I'd use the opportunity whilst I'm spending the money.
So we've just spoke about, of course, our service team out in the field, but we did the podcast with Fred, our applications manager, and he mentioned how they work from the beginning with the sales team on finding the right solutions for our customers. How do they find that for a customer's inquiry?
Well, the problem we have, Charlie, is, as you know, we've got a very wide portfolio of machines. So we've often got one or two different types of machines that can do the same job. So the sales guy, which John can go on to in a bit to talk about how he identifies where that narrowing it down. And then, of course, what the apps team will do is then focus on a proposal to manufacture that component. And the proposal would be based around a number of items. Maybe they want some kind of tack time. Maybe they just want a single cycle time. Maybe they want to look at automation. Or they want to link machines, or they want individual machines. So it's all about finding the right solution. And I think it starts with John's team on the sales, where he can talk about later how that is initially developed. But the apps guys, we've got a lot of experience, and as we've said before, also with the service and the spares, we can pull on the group's experience. So there are hundreds and hundreds of applications that we've got in our diary, if you like, or our books to show what has been done throughout the world, and we can pull on that experience as well.
Perfect. I think this would be a perfect time to come over to our sales director. And John, what is the main purpose of a salesman?
Well, I think it's quite a broad question, is that? But one could argue that the sales function is singularly, in any company, let alone in DMG MORI, singularly the most important department in any organisation. Without sales or a platform to generate sales, then there literally is no business. But basically, sales bridge the gap between the customer's requirement and the products and services that we provide. Job of a sales guy is to qualify that requirement accurately and effectively and communicate that internally to our apps department if required, or put a specification for a machine or a cell together themselves. So we have apps and we have product managers, and they all work very closely together depending on the application and the application that's in front of them. And of course they have to deliver that, and this is a fact, they have to deliver that in a mutually beneficial commercial way or solution, because the customer wants to make money, and of course we as an organisation want to make money, and I think there's really no denying that, but it has to be mutually beneficial.
John, I've noticed over the years that you it's not just a salesman, it's a technical salesperson, isn't it?
Yeah, they have to. Sales guys, certainly within DMG MORI, have to be multidisciplined in terms of applications. They're all time served applications, technical, commercial, finance, and of course, if you look at our product range with the automation and software solutions, and that's increasing all the time, then they have to be on top of that continually. For example, only this morning, Steve and I were on a call with the sales guys with the Japanese factory on a product training webinar just on some of the automation products that are offered from Japan.
Yeah, which was actually very detailed, actually, and whilst the sales guys are not going to go into detail, they've got to have an understanding of how the product works, so they can actually talk to the customer about it and make a proposal. But it is an interesting point because, as John said, without sales, nothing else moves on. So we are primarily a sales organisation, but to support that, we've got to have all these other departments that function well, think about the customer first experience that actually make it happen.
Has the way in which you sell changed during COVID? Has it had to change?
Yes, because it's been more remote. So a lot of the guys have worked on Teams and Zoom platforms, and that's a little bit trickier in time trying to sort of read situations and understand situations. So that they have changed over the last sort of 18 months or so. But of course, most of the sales guys, and really experienced sales guys, like to be face to face and in front of people and seeing the application and understanding exactly what the requirement may be.
And of course, that leads on to another question, because we can poke it back at Charlie now, because marketing has been really important the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And what's the kind of things that you have developed, Charlie, to actually send the message out to our customers?
That's a very good question. Thanks for turning it back around. Well, of course, over the past, since COVID and over the past 18 months, we've really developed our social media presence, like LinkedIn and Twitter for the first part, so we can get that. We've tried to get that kicked off straight away. But yeah, our LinkedIn's really taken off. Of course, as we said, we're working closely with MTD themselves to do podcasts and videos with customers going in, getting case studies, and I for one go to new customers loyal customers that have had machines delivered and see their successful deliveries and see how they all are. But yeah, so hopefully we do more as
and that really supports John's area, doesn't it, in respects of, people, as John said on his last podcast, people will do a certain amount of, not just certain amount, but quite detailed investigation into what they want and how it will work. So by the time the sales guys comes there, it's kind of can be predefined, which actually we see as a problem. And I've just seen it where I've gone to buy something that was quite expensive with all my own ideas and actually had them completely turned around because of that industry expert, that knowledge he had. So we're sending all of that information out. That's great.
Definitely.
Charlie, I think you're doing an absolutely unbelievable job. So firstly, I just want to kind of say that. But going back to sales and marketing, I believe now that the two should be looked upon as one, and the integration between the two now has never been as important. I think now if you're a sales guy, you need to be a good sales guy, you need to be a good technical person and have experience in that, but you also need to be good at social media and marketing. The way in which now, not just in our industry, but in all industries, marketing is it drives customer demand, doesn't it, Charlie?
Yeah, I can agree. And of course, John, we work quite closely with not just us two and Steve, but with the sales team and their customers to make sure that they know that if there's anything that we can do to help them also get their name out there, we'll do as much as we can for them. Also, Steve, you made a good point a second ago when we were talking about with the sales team that the whole company functions as one. And of course, once a salesman has sold a machine, that machine then needs to be brought over to the UK, and if it's in our stock areas, we need to use it there. So for installs, why is the communication between our company and the customer so important?
Well, you hear it a lot where companies go, thanks for the order, we'll send all the details to you and we'll let you do this, we'll let you do that. But it's got to go further than that. So we've got a guy, Martin Woodbridge, who explained about the installs. Why the communication is so important is because the customer doesn't have a machine tool delivered every day. And therefore, some customers have more regularly than others. But the point is, it's not a regular occurrence. So we've got to check all the floor. We've got to make sure that the access is good, the electrics is good. And these all sound pretty easy. You know, oh yeah, we can just walk through there, we can walk through there. Can we get access from the road? All of these kind of things. And you're doing a one-off delivery. And when that machine is delivered, that's the first day of the machine's life. That's its first birthday. And it's got to be right, because if you get it wrong then, nobody ever will forget it.
Yeah.
And it will always be remembered as that machine turned up and it was dropped and it was this and it was that. And you just can't let those things happen. So it's really important as part of the experience. And that's the start of the life. So the sales guy's done all the talking at the front end. Now we're doing the action. This is the first time we've delivered as a company.
And that's quite interesting, actually, because when we're in front of a lot of your customers now, I used to sort of say, well, you know, off camera, you know, how do you feel about the machine? And it used to be, yeah, great price, really happy with that. But within that now, it's the price, the application, and also the installation and how you support them. It's one package.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key.
Also, the fact that, you know, we're doing more and more. One of the things I would say on sales is that they're becoming more complex, more people involved, but also the expectation is very high as well. So we're getting more and more involved in FAT tests, factory acceptance tests, run-offs, that kind of thing, because people they want value for money, and they want to make sure that it hits the ground running from day one.
I know, John, in the sales podcast, if our listeners didn't listen to it, you mentioned that the new business was astounding. Really, you know, it was around 50%. Is that correct?
Yes,
It's running about 47%.
47%. Yeah.
How have you achieved that? I mean, that is a fantastic and staggering statistic. You know, winning more market share. Is that down to being proactive and the things that and the niceties of what we've been talking about during these podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we make no secret of that. We're very proactive as a sales team, but also we have a technology offering that is very attractive to the market at the present time, particularly with the automation solutions and also the digital offering as we go forward with that. That'll become more and more significant, particularly, you know, as I mentioned on the last podcast, as our customer base gets younger, they're much more IT literate, and they have an expectation of understanding what the machines will do at any one time. So all that all forms part of our digital manufacturing packages, and that'll become more important, as I said, going forward.
John, I think you've made a great point there, but as also another aspect of our business that's grown greatly over the past, I'd say, 18 months, and that's the finance side. So why as a machine tool manufacturing company would we offer a finance package?
To facilitate more sales, to be honest with you. I think finance generally in the world, if you look at any motorway now, you look at some really nice cars, they're all on finance, and I think finance makes the world go around, definitely. What we did was write our own book, so we can take a much more lateral view on occasions, and to facilitate a machine tool sale.
Yeah, we can add that residual value because we know our product. We know what our product is going to be worth in 3 or 5 years' time. Most customers go for 5 years, and you can put a cost against that. So therefore, we can now be cheaper on a monthly cost than some of the low-cost, let's say, lesser specification machines. And that puts us in incredibly competitive. So we're offering both a technical solution from John's team where it starts from to apps to make sure that the technical solution is right. That's the most important thing. And then you offer a commercial proposal. And that's where we're really, really, really strong. And we can do all kinds of things now. So the latest thing from Group is Payzar, where the customer can actually buy he actually rents a machine online, so he rents it on a spindle hourly rate. Now we're only locked onto 2 machines at the moment, the M1 and the CLX450TC, which is a multi-axis offering from Bielefeld. But actually the customer can buy that on spindle hours. So it's quite an interesting one, because if you've got a machine shop that's doing low volume, high variety, which a lot of our shops are, you're spending a lot of time on setups. So your spindle's not running. So you don't have to pay for it. You only pay for it when the spindle's running. The other side of the coin is we can offer all kinds of operating lease or hire purchase, whichever you want, which suit the customer's contract. So John did a deal with a big aerospace company a while back, 2-year operating lease, because the customer only had a 2-year contract. I think we discussed this at another project meeting, another podcast we had, where the customer's now extended that. So there's great opportunities to promote finance to support the customer in manufacturing. For sure, it facilitates more orders, as John said, but it's about supporting the customer.
It's about flexibility. It's not just always about headline rates and that kind of thing and residual value. It's about flexibility and trying to work around customers' own contract requirements. And in the case that Steve mentioned, that was a short-term contract that we were able to fulfil or help the customer fulfil because they could do the machine on a 2-year lease with an option at the end of that period either to send it back or purchase it.
Just briefly on that, Steve, I remember you saying to me that the finance sort of stemmed where Dr. Mori said, well, if you want one of my machines, I'll give you the opportunity to have a machine. There was boundaries there before, wasn't there?
Yeah, Dr. Mori was the instigator many years ago on this because he witnessed the potential damage that a particular bank was doing to a customer in respects of trying to put them on a 3 or 5 year lease, whatever it was, and then at the end of the lease, charge them a small fortune to either purchase the machine or continue renting it. And it was wrong. It was wrong on every level. And he said that he wants to actually support manufacturing. So the prime reason for him was to actually support manufacturing. The end result is we facilitate more orders.
Steve, with this renting scheme, as you referred to it as, I mean, that's got to be a game changer within our industry, hasn't it? I like the
Absolutely.
fact that you're only paying for what you're using effectively.
Yeah, it is. I mean, particularly universities, colleges, where they only use the machines for a short amount of times each week, this is going to be perfect for them. But also tool room applications, where you're doing a lot more setting than running. Perfect.
And do you believe that this will run across all of your range with time?
This will go across all of the range in time. It's not for everybody, but it's another feature of the finance that allows people to invest at a cost that they can afford. And incidentally, actually, Gio, one of the things also about the fact of having DMG MORI Finance is the new starts that we've had. And we've had quite a number of new start companies where instead of actually going and buying some second-hand machines and dodging along and putting a few plasters on them to make sure they carry on working, they've been able to come in and buy new.
And is this going back to the point about 47% new business, new customers that have never?
Some of it.
It's certainly a factor in that number.
And from a sales perspective, it must be great to have this in your itinerary, to be able to have this finance and offer this fantastic package. And as it also made DMG MORI UK more approachable. And there's companies that I've seen and witnessed myself in the UK firsthand that you wouldn't have dreamt them having, a state-of-the-art 5th axis simultaneous machine from DMG MORI UK, just started up with some of the latest kit. It's you wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago.
No, and it's been a big factor in our growth over the last 3 to 5 years, I would have said.
Actually, I'm going to make a point there. I put this down to the marketing. I think that 47% is down to the marketing capability of a certain person.
Absolutely.
Just backtrack slightly. We've spoke about different aspects of a machine sale and what it comes with, and one of those areas is the life cycle products. What's the main function of those, Steve?
That is to really support the customer through the cycle of its products, through the life of it. And whether that be maintenance contracts, or they need to buy components, or they want to look at various ways of training and that kind of thing, it's all part of what happens after the machine has been installed. And we can offer machine tool insurance, we can offer training, we can offer maintenance contracts, we can offer spot maintenance. All of these things are really important to make sure the customer gets the best from the machine tool. That department also runs a number of let's call them junior engineers, to be polite, because these are guys that are setting out on the road of training to become full-blown diagnostic engineers, service engineers. But this is a great training ground for these guys, because what can happen is that they're more than capable to do the maintenance side of the machines, but we send them on doing these maintenances so they can grow in strength and they can actually develop themselves to move on. So it's a development area more than anything for our own people, but for the customer it supports the life of the product.
It's always good to do development within the younger generation as well, so it's good to hear that.
Charlie, you know that. We've got to have a legacy, John and I, and it's got to be with the younger generation, and that's really important for us.
Yeah. So it's really to maximise the value and the investment that the customers have made into their machines, and maintain them going over the 5 years or 3 to 5 years and beyond in many cases. Life of the machine. I think in addition, we also have a lot of the digital products come back to that as well. So you've got a lot of technology apps and monitoring apps now that will also become part of that life cycle product portfolio as well. And again, these will be bolt-ons as we go forward, depending on the machine platform, of course.
I mean, I do like your CLOS control. When talking about digitalisation, all the digital different platforms that you now offer, that you can find out a lot more about in a lot more detail from some of the previous podcasts that we've done. But the CLOS is just brilliant, isn't it? It's so user friendly, and is that strategically been designed that way to make it user friendly? And you mentioned or alluded to, and you used the analogy. Young children are using iPads now, and they can get onto that machine, and it's quite an easy transition.
Well, it's becoming very intuitive. I mean, there are 5 pillars on the CLOS control that we use, which is planning, preparation, production, monitoring, and service. And underneath those 5 pillars are our digital offering in terms of programming, service, programming, that kind of thing. So, and then all the digital projects will fall below those 5 pillars. So,
it sounds great. It's one of those aspects that we do need, and it works really well. Steve, the last podcast before this one that you guys did was with Kevin Buck, Special Projects. Why did you develop that department?
Well, it's an expansion of the company because, in general, we can supply across the board. We have a very wide portfolio, which I keep going on about, but it's about how we support it. And what Kevin does, he looks at top-end stuff. Machines traditionally over, let's say, £1 million, which need an incredible amount of detail to go into before you can even start to put a quotation together. And Kevin's background is really very much that. And what we're doing is we're getting more and more demands from customers, particularly on the bigger side of machines, where we've got to go into this enormous amount of detail to make sure that we put a quotation together that actually will deliver the goods. And some of the projects that Kevin's now working on are, one of them's 2 years old, and it wouldn't be unusual to have that kind of cycle on it. But in that cycle, you've got an enormous amount of work to do to make sure the customer has the confidence to come with us. Portfolio-wise, product-wise, we can tick the box every time.
Yeah.
It's how we support that. So this is really top-end engineering.
That makes sense.
It's all links in, I mentioned before, complexity. So complexity of people, number of people involved in a machine tool purchase process, but also the technical element is becoming, the demand for that is increasing as well, particularly on the larger platforms. So you don't just sell one of those machines. There's a whole process to go through, and obviously the follow-up and delivery of those projects, particularly in the larger aerospace, F1, those kind of arenas.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time on this year's podcast with DMG MORI UK. One thing I've noticed, John, over the last few months, the machines, there's a different sign on the top left-hand corner, or depending on what machine it is, but carbon neutral. What is DMG MORI What does that statement actually mean, I suppose?
Well, carbon neutral, as anybody that's looking at news at the moment, is becoming an increasingly important facet of our society, let alone machine tools. But DMG MORI have been carbon neutral since 2021. 2020. So for example, our Scope 1 and 2, we have solar panels within all our factories now. We used to have wind carriers as well to offset the Scope 1 and 2. It's a little bit more difficult in Scope 3 into our supply chain, so that's something that we're working very hard on as well. But the three main initiatives for DMG MORI on the badge, as you see it, is the green machine. So that's covering all the CO2s in our manufacturing process. There's green mode, so there's the energy efficiency of the machine and how it operates over time. And then we have green tech, which is a continuous development of new technologies and greener technologies. So those three initiatives have been in place since 2020. So it's a very significant and important part of what we're doing going forward. And I think that's not just in machine tools, I think that's in society in general. So.
Yeah, everybody has that responsibility. So even here in the UK, we run on clean electricity or green electricity. We use LED lighting. We've got heating controls and all things like this. We're using electric cars where we can, where it's viable. All of those kind of things are doing it. And between us here and what group are doing, what the machines are doing, is a contribution towards keeping the Earth at 1.5 degrees, no higher, please, because we've already seen what the devastation nature can bring. And I think it's really important that every single company in the world makes these contributions. And I would say that DMG MORI is probably the most advanced in any machine tool company in bringing that carbon neutral to the marketplace.
Something else I learned about from you, actually, Steve, on the finance podcast. I think we touched upon this, and you informed me that in the future that there probably will be levies within manufacturing workshops if you're not carbon neutral. So you're one step ahead of the game again.
You will be.
Guys, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of this podcast journey, the podcast episodes for 2021. Any last thoughts?
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone on this team. I'd like to thank all the people that have participated from Teresa on spares, Andy on service, Fred on applications, Martin on installs, John on LCP, John here today on the sales side, James on the finance, Kevin on the special projects, but Charlie also has been in the background supporting all of this. It doesn't happen by magic. And I'd certainly like to thank you two guys, Gio and Mark, for making this effort to make sure that we're here every month to talk about something, the preparation that goes into it. And I think that really sets the scene for what we do for a customer. Why are we here? We're here to service the customer, and I think that's this journey has showed people what we can do, what we're capable of. Come and try us if you haven't already tried us, and if you're trying us and you like it, let me know.
Well, what a fantastic way to end the podcast journey for 2021. Steve, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mark. And with everything we do at MTD, it's all about breaking down barriers to entry. It's about education. And I believe that this podcast journey with DMG MORI UK has been a real education. I've certainly learnt a hell of a lot, and I hope that our listeners have too. So if you want to listen to all of these different podcasts, they're all on our platform, from spares, service, application, installs, LCP, lifecycle products, sales, finance, special projects, and the wrap-up that we've done today. Hopefully we'll be doing some more next year, because I'll be rather sad if we don't. But until next week, the MTD podcast.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.